Hey sports fans, are you in the market for Florida sports or just keeping up with the latest in the Panhandle? Palm Tree Sports is a dedicated audio hub to all things sports in the Sunshine State. We cover current events, big news, heavily favored opinions all across the NFL, NBA, MLB, and so much more. So come check us out every Saturday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For a down south education on Florida sports and athletics, it's hosted by yours truly, Corey Pujols, and is powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Palm Tree Sports Radio, the 45th episode to be exact. It is hosted by yours truly, Corey Pujols, and brought to you and powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Happy Saturday. How is everybody's weekend treating them so far? Leave a message in the comments. Tell me how things are going on, guys. Got quite a few things to talk about today. I'm excited to bring you this information. As of right now, I am currently watching the Miami versus Houston game right now. It is 21-7, I believe it was, is the last score. There hasn't been anything out of the break yet. So at this point, we'll get to that in a moment. It's actually 25-7. Oh, not 25, my bad. That's the Jaguars game. The score is 21-3 Fins over the Jags, right? Or not Jags, but the Texans right now. Excuse me, I'm sorry about that. I got all these games lined up. And we're going to get started with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers first, and then we'll cover what's going on with the Fins and the Jags, as their games are well, the Jags game is already over and the Fins game is now in the second half. So, with what to expect tonight, the Buccaneers will be playing the New York Jets. That game is going to be taking place at 7:30, so just a little under 2 hours away. A little over an hour and a half, I would say, actually. So, because those games start a few minutes later than normal, but that's the game for tonight for Tampa Bay, guys. Most of the stars are projected to be on the field for both the Buccaneers and the Jets. So, if you're looking to see what both of these teams have in store, now is the perfect time to check the game out. Now, as for the other two teams, as I mentioned before, the Jags and the Fins, their games will already have been over by them. So I'm going to go ahead and give you those updates as they roll in, more specifically with the Fins game, since the Jags game, as I mentioned before, is already over. Now, with Tampa Bay, here's a couple of things of what to expect for tonight. One, Kyle Trask should be getting the bulk of the time with the starters while they are on the field today. That was something that was done throughout practice and the joint practices that were held between these two teams during this past week, that is. And so we're going to have a chance to see what Kyle can do with players who can help carry him a little bit, okay? And I'm saying that based off of his appearance from both last week's game in the preseason, and then the preseason games that he had last year, also specifically speaking, the game against, I believe it was Miami that we played. Now, Kyle has been ripping it up in practice. He's been doing very, very well, but he doesn't seem to have shown it yet on the field, and that's something that we are hoping to see tonight, especially with the addition of as many starters that will be playing today for Tampa Bay and the Jets alike. This should be a perfect chance to have a look at what both of these teams bring to the table, especially when mixing the young talent with the older talent. All right, guys, so that's something that we're looking for. That's going to be the first thing we're looking for, to see how does Kyle Trask do with starters, okay? Second thing is to talk about last week's performance that Tampa Bay had. I mentioned it last week, but this is something that still needs to be addressed at this very moment, especially if the team now that we are into the second game of the preseason. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line was terrible last week, okay? Now, I have an idea. It doesn't mean that my idea is something that could work. But put Tristan Wirfs back at his original position where he was an all-pro since he's been in the league, okay? Sign a veteran left tackle, all right? And let everybody else do what they do. I do not believe that Luke Gadecki is the answer at right tackle for Tampa Bay. I don't think the kid really has what it takes to get the job done. Cody Mauch is a very good, productive player, but he's too young to ask him to switch roles right now. So I think that there are probably some offensive tackles out there that provide a little bit more security than what we have in Luke Gadecki, who we drafted 2 years ago. Okay, so not this past year, the year before. All right, I'm not a big fan of him. His production is lackluster at best. Okay, and the problem with that is when your right tackle is performing bad, it makes it all that much harder for your right guard to perform well. Okay, guys, you see how that works? So it's like having a chink in the armor. If you have a chink in the armor, essentially the armor's already cracked. Okay, essentially there's already that weak point that can be exploited, and that's not something that you really want to have to deal with. Okay, so amongst that, the good news, or the good thing to look out for as far as this game is going to be concerned, is going to be the young talent both on the defensive side of the ball and the wide receivers. Okay, now for those of you who do not know, the Buccaneers lost their number 3 wide receiver this past week due to a non-contact injury. All right, Russell Gage has been lost for the season in a pretty serious knee injury. Again, that was a no-contact injury that he sustained. With that being said, we saw the emergence of Trey Palmer last week, and we've heard about him all throughout training camp. Guys, this is going to be my first player to look out for tonight's game, is Trey Palmer. Expect him to play the whole first half, if not possibly the whole game. The kid is arguably the best rookie that we have on the team besides Yaya Diaby, okay, which would be my second name to watch out for, all right? And my third name to watch out for this Tampa Bay young team, all right, is going to be Sirvassier. My apologies. Sirvassier Dennis. I was about to say his name backwards. My apologies, guys. These are going to be the 3 players that I would like for you guys to pay close attention to, especially when playing with more of the starters, okay? These are guys who are going to jump off the ball. When you see these plays and these players run these routes and defend these offensive players, when you see the game being played in general, I want you to have your eyes out on those 3 players, okay? Trey Palmer's number 10 on wide receiving core on offense, okay? On defense, Sirvassier Dennis is number... I can't remember what number he is because Yaya Diaby is number 0. So that's going to be 2 of the numbers right there. I got to go find out what Sirvassier Dennis's number is again because I forgot what that was. I do apologize. If anybody knows that, please put it in the comments and I'll mention it. But in the meantime, between time, get ready to see those guys suited up. They're going to show out today, I think, especially against a Jets team that's going to be using most of its starters today, which should lead to some very good interaction on the field between these 2 teams. Now, that's what's going on tonight for Tampa Bay. Next week, the final preseason game of this 2023 preseason is going to be against the Baltimore Ravens. That game is going to be Saturday, August 26th, 7 p.m. So just like today, Buccaneers football on a Saturday, same thing next week, Buccaneers football on a Saturday just against the Ravens, all right? Again, that's August 26th, 7 p.m., okay? So that's what's going on in Tampa Bay, guys. Let's go ahead and move on to the next team. Again, like I said, we have quite a few things to talk about, so I would like to get all this information to you guys in a timely manner. The Jaguars already beat the Lions, and when I say beat, they smashed the Lions, or as Khabib Nurmagomedov would say, they smashed those boys, okay? Now, that score came at an abrupt 25-7 preseason blowout, something that we rarely see in the preseason against 2 teams who are on a similar path, okay? Now, the reason why I say that is because both the Lions and the Jaguars are on a resurgence. The Jaguars, yes, are ahead of the Lions just due to better drafting. Okay, guys, that's really what it comes down to. It's not that Detroit has a bad team. They have a lot of talent on their team. It's just when you look at what the Jags were able to do with their draft picks and what they've been able to do acquiring, those draft picks and then signing the people they signed in the offseason more specifically as well, they have the better quote-unquote roster at the moment. Okay, now for some outstanding stats, we had CJ Beathard go 12 for 20, 138 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. It's a very solid performance by a young quarterback. It's the type of stuff you like to see, especially in the preseason. Shows you that you have somebody in your hands that might just know what to do in the event that they need to come in and command this team and operate. Okay, so good job from Mr. Beathard. I look forward to seeing more production from this kid. Hopefully he gets to play a lot like he did today in the final preseason game. I would like for him to clean up that interception, although I know everybody can't be perfect. It's just one of those things that we know the coaches are going to talk about, so I'm going to talk about it here. Okay. In other news, Cartavius Tank Bigsby had 13 carries for 70 yards. That's an outstanding average. I believe that's about, what is that? Just under 6.5 yards a carry. So it's pretty good. You know what I'm saying? It's like what you like to see. I would say like 6.3 yards a carry. So that's a pretty good standard. I know it's preseason, but it's something you like to see, especially from a young rookie running back. I believe the kid's only 21 years old. He's out of Auburn, so he played SEC football. You know what that means. He's pretty much already ready to go, and he's showing that already. So good job from the young guys up front. Like I said, CJ Bethald and Cartavius Tank Bigsby played very, very well. Overall, solid offensive and defensive play from the Jaguars allowed them to completely just pull away in each quarter of the game. They were able to score. That's something that you look forward to seeing, especially, like I said, with the young team playing against another young team with also a good amount of talent on it that's on a resurgence as well. Okay, guys? So, the next game is going to be against the Dolphins. This is going to be an in-state battle for the final game of the 2023 preseason for the Jags and the Dolphins, again, who are playing right now and moving the ball down the field as we speak. Again, the score for that Dolphins game is still 21-3, so I will keep you guys updated with that as it is going on. There's 2 minutes, 50 seconds left in the third quarter. Now, the game, as far as the Jags and the Fins to be played, this game is going to be a lot more contested game than the Jags versus the Lions or the Fins versus the Texans is right now, okay? Both of these teams are much more closer in stature than any of the other teams that we've been talking about up until this point, okay? Including the Ravens when they take on Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, again, is in a rebuilding mode now that Tom is no longer here, now that Leonard Fournette is no longer here, now that a lot of the defensive pieces that we had are no longer here. So we're looking forward to see how we rack up against a team that has a lot of potential to not only make the playoffs, but make a deep run into the playoffs this year in the Baltimore Ravens. Aside from that, as I mentioned, Jags-Fins, going to be a close game, especially with the starters rolling out. They're going to play, somewhere between 1 to 3 drives, if not the whole quarter. Okay, guys, so just be expecting that from both of those teams next week. And at that point, we're going to bridge the gap into the Fins, as we are already talking about him, who are already currently beating, like I said, the Texans 21-3 right now. There's 2 minutes, 20 seconds left in the third quarter. Dolphins have 2 timeouts. Texans have 3. Texans, Dolphins, 2 very penalized teams right now, with the Texans actually committing a penalty, making it 1st and 5 for the Fins at the Texans 37, all right? Skylar Thompson going deep, almost intercepted. Bad throw, Skylar. And speaking of Skylar, that's somebody I want to talk about right now because he's performing exceptionally well right now, especially with the players around him. He was at halftime at a 7 attempts, 11 completions, 57 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's looking to build on that right now. Had an errant throw right here. Maybe the receiver didn't run the right route. I'm not really sure what took place. That looks like it was just a bad throw. But we'll see what happens moving forward. In bigger news, Tua Tagovailoa goes 5 of 7, 61 yards, and 1 interception. No touchdowns. Okay, here's the thing. It's preseason. But here's the thing. It's preseason. Whenever you have a starting quarterback who's throwing interceptions in the preseason, there's a little hair on the back of your neck that stands up, whether you want it to or not. Okay? And that's just something that you have to point out because when you look on tape, you're going to see that. All right? So hopefully he's able to clean that up, especially moving into this last preseason game, as I mentioned, which is going to be against the Jags, going to be against a stout defense, a defense that already knows what to look for with somebody that's a gunslinger like Tua Tagovailoa. He's going to have to straighten that out. The 5 of 7 for 61 yards, yeah, that's fine. Moving the ball, intermediate, short passes only, probably a couple of screens in there to get the offensive line a little loosened up. That's all well and good. Against the Jaguars, that's not necessarily going to work as well, okay? So, as we move on from that, the other bit of stat news for the Fins is going to be Salvon Ahmed, who had 8 carries and 88 yards by halftime. That's an 11-yard average. Guys, that's absolutely ridiculous. That's shattering what we've seen from most of the running backs all this preseason. And for him to do it in a half and still be able to put more stats on paper is going to be something very interesting to watch out. That's Salvon Ahmed. He also had 4 receptions for 32 yards and a touchdown. So this guy is very good, not just holding on to the football, but getting out of the backfield. And you know quarterbacks love a receiver, or running back, I should say, who can play receiver and catch balls out of the backfield. Always a big deal. And with that being said, Skylar Thompson completes one over the middle inside the 20. Dolphins threatening here in the red zone again. 1 minute left in the third quarter before we move into the fourth, guys. Now, for the Dolphins' final game this preseason, as I mentioned earlier, it's going to be against the Jags. Again, that game is Saturday, August 26th, 7 p.m. So what that means is essentially, guys, you will get to see all of the Florida football teams in their final preseason with their starters, okay, all on the same day, all right, and specifically all around the same time. The Buccaneers game will be at 7 p.m., and then the Dolphins-Jags game will be at 7 p.m. So if you go back and forth, this is going to be the perfect chance for you to do that. Have a look at this young talent, especially as they play against each other. We're going to go screen past Miami. Inside the 10, count it down, touchdown Miami, 26-3, Miami over the Texans. 30 seconds left to go in the third, guys. That's what's going on in the NFL right now, guys. Let's go ahead and get into our first break. And when we get back, we're going to talk about a little NCAA news. I'm going to give you the first of all of the Week 1 ball games for the major colleges here in Florida. Then I'm going to talk to you about what's going on in the Rays. We're going to discuss a little tiny bit about what's going on in pro wrestling. And we'll wrap it up with the UFC fight card tonight on what to watch. Okay, guys? My name is Corey Pujols. I am your host for Palm Tree Sports, and it is brought to you by IE Sports Radio. You know what it is, guys. Your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's going on, football fans? This is me, your boy Larry B, inviting you to join myself, Callum Reynolds, Mike Pat, and John Felipe for one of the most electrifying football shows you have ever heard. 3 and Out, right here at IE Sports Radio. Recap of the week before, a preview of what's to come, and of course, 3 hardcore head-to-head prime-time face-offs each week. You don't want to miss it.
And you know, they used to call Larry Bird Larry Legend. We got our own Larry Legend here. That is his show, The Architect, the man that makes it go around. Shout out to Larry. If you can hear me, brother, always appreciate what you're doing. But here we are back at Palm Tree Sports Radio. My name is Corey Pools. I'm your host, and as always, this is brought to you and powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Guys, I got a couple of games for you to look out for real quick before I get into that for college football. The Dolphins went for 2, and they converted, so it is now 28-3. Dolphins over the Texans as we are getting ready to wrap up this third quarter and move over to the fourth quarter. Now, as far as the college news is concerned, guys, as you know, with pro football comes college football. And a little personal note about myself, and this is something I may get from my dad. I know you're listening, Dad. I love you. Shout out to you, Dad. I hope you're being safe getting back from work. Now, listen. College football at any point in time throughout the year, throughout the football season, if you will, okay, which is the end of summer into the end of winter, all right? Anything can happen in college football, okay? I absolutely love pro football. I love the NFL. I love watching the top of the top duke it out just like any heavyweight fight. But when it comes to potential and when it comes to raw, untapped ability, college football completely takes the cake as far as entertainment, storylines, and so much more. How often is it that we see, you know, these college football teams end up in situations, and I'll give you one for example for those of you who may remember this, okay? I'm a Gator, so shout out FSU. I see you, Poppy, but I'm a Gator, and when you're a Gator, there are certain teams that you don't like. The teams that the Florida teams in general that don't like outside of the state of Florida, that is, would be Michigan, The Ohio State University, and I gotta say it with the air quotations because they're the only college with a "the" in front of their name, okay? And yes, there are a few other teams. Obviously, you know, there's the rivalry, the in-state rivalry versus FSU, but as a Gator, we respect FSU the same way we respect LSU and Alabama because we see those teams so often, all right, guys? So let's not get confused with teams that we don't like versus teams that we respect. We don't really like Miami. Like I said, the respect for FSU is there. We have the same amount of championships. We've equally had great quarterbacks in our history. We've produced some of the greatest defenses of all times. And a lot of talent from Florida makes their names either at the University of Florida or Florida State University, I should say. And of course, there's University of Miami, but that's further down south, and we don't care about those guys. The reason why I'm saying that, though, is when Purdue beat, I believe it was Purdue, the Boilermakers, okay, they beat Ohio State, okay? If any of you remember that game, it should immediately send chills down your back because Purdue was terrible that year, okay? But for one night and one night only, they decided to beat the second best team in the country. And Ohio State might have been the best team in the country at that point, okay? Because I believe Alabama was ranked first that year. So it's one of those things that if you don't watch college football, consider this little information that I'm handing you guys right now as a reason to watch college football, because let me tell you, it's super exciting. You never know what's going to happen, and anything can truly happen on any given Saturday. Okay, guys? Now, about the details of what the first week of college football in the state of Florida is going to look like, well, it's very simple, okay? The Gators are going up against number 14th ranked Utah Utes, which was a rematch from the very first game of the season last year. If you guys remember, Anthony Richardson absolutely went bonkers that night. The defense came up with a game-saving interception in the end zone to end the game. It was what you might call the perfect way to start the college football season. Now, unfortunately, the Gator season kind of went downhill after that. There were some good moments, but more bad than good. The Utes find themselves again ranked inside the top 20, which is always a good thing for them. That's a team we have a great respect for. I look forward to seeing how our team performs. However, I do believe that Utah will pull away with the win. This is not me not having faith in my team. It's me understanding what the expectation was. And Utah already looked good last year. Mind you, after they lost the first game of the season, they would go on to win the next 7 games. Okay, guys? So, Utah could be for real. We're going to find out against Florida again as Billy Napier leads our team into Gainesville on that Thursday. All right, here's the switch up, guys. That's a Thursday game, August 31st. 8 p.m. Normally the Gators are playing on Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. As it turns out, this game is going to be a Thursday game. So if you haven't converted your mindsets and your time for football to then, I don't know what to tell you. You got a few days to get ready for it, all right? Specifically 9 days, or actually 10 days to be exact. But you get what I'm saying, okay? Now, other bit of news, sad news coming out of the University of Florida. Backup running back Cam Carell out for season, knee injury. It's the first or second stringer that we have lost in the last 2 weeks due to knee injuries. I'm not sure if they're going too hard up there in Tallahassee Gainesville. My apologies, guys. I'm not sure if that's what the issue is, or if the conditioning isn't right, I'm not sure what it is, guys. But they've got to slow it down before we lose too many players, okay? The team is already thin on top talent for this season as it is. Next season will be a different ballgame. We're going to have a couple of quarterbacks coming in, a whole bunch of 3- and 4-star talent, and possibly even 5-star. We'll see what happens throughout the season and as recruiting still continues to go on. But for the time being, the Gators are still completely in a rebuild season, especially after losing Anthony Richardson to the draft. And by the way, congratulations to Anthony Richardson, who has won the starting job there in Indianapolis. The man is a tremendous talent. If you haven't had the chance to see him, I'm going to tell you this right now. Get ready to be shocked and surprised on Sundays if you're in the AFC South, unless you're the Jaguars. Now, moving on to the Noles, the 8th ranked Noles. Real quick before I move on to Noles, that's a great question. Is Napier the guy? You know, I'm glad you asked that because I'm gonna shine a light on this for about 30 seconds, 45 seconds real quick. The man is an absolute wizard at the end game, okay? In other words, he's very good. If he was a boxer, he'd be a master counter striker, okay? He knows how to set traps, he knows how to set feints, he knows how to make other teams believe that his team is falling into an area that they actually, thrive in, okay? When you have a coach like that, he's very hard to defeat because there's not a lot that he hasn't seen coming. Now, can he do it at the highest level? That's what we're going to see within this year and next year. He's a tremendous recruiter. He's got a tremendous football mind. Now he needs talent that can execute. We saw what he was able to do with Anthony Richardson. Yes, there were some questionable calls, but mind you, last year was his first season with Florida, and going 6-6, that's not too bad. As long as he doesn't do that or worse again this year, he's my guy. Depending on how this season goes, because if this season is bad, he'll be on the hot seat next year for sure, and he may not make it through the entire year because down here in Florida, as you guys know, with FSU, with Miami, with Florida, we're accustomed to greatness, all right? Somebody go look up how many national titles that is in the state of Florida between Miami, Florida State, and Florida. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of surprised people to, find out that stat is as high as it is. Because with FSU and Florida alone, that's 6. Okay? And with all 6 of them, if I'm not mistaken, coming in the last 40 years. Okay? So that's kind of a big deal when you add Miami, who was the terror of the 80s, all right, in college football. So there's a little nugget of knowledge, history for you guys. Moving on. Like I said, moving on back to, but with the Noles, their first game is going to be against the 5th-ranked LSU Tigers. Guys, this game is huge. Okay, this game is absolutely monumental. Okay, you say, why is it so big, Corey? Why is this game monumental? It's not because FSU is ranked 8th and because LSU is ranked 5th. It's because both of these teams are tremendous and have tremendous rosters. Okay, both of these teams still have young talent with a lot of their players coming over. Okay, with a lot of players coming from their sophomore and junior years, entering in their junior and senior years. That's a big deal in college football. You say, why is that a big deal, Corey? Well, it's very simple. A lot of teams really only reach their pinnacle when they have mostly seniors. Both LSU and FSU, all right, have a lot of sophomores and juniors that will be starting. There will be seniors, of course. But they're going to have sophomores and juniors all across the field, guys. That's something to look out for, okay? It's a very, very big deal. That means they have a lot of time ahead of them, all right, that they will be able to improve beyond what they already have in their buckets, all right? Now, FSU definitely should have blown away LSU last year, but then we saw LSU's emergence, even though it was teeter-tattery. We've seen their emergence as well, and with that roster that they possess right now, I look forward to seeing this game as one of the early votes for Game of the Year, though it may only be in the first game of the season, all right? I have tremendous respect for both of these teams. I adore LSU in the West, mostly because even though I respect Alabama, I'm tired of seeing Nick Saban on top. I'd like to see the guy get TKO'd and not even make the playoffs for once in his college football career. But aside from that, when you look out West and you see all this talent, a lot of the time when your team is in a specific division, you have other teams that you eyeball, okay? So for myself, for instance, I'll give you guys an example. I am a diehard Gator. However, I thoroughly enjoy watching Penn State University play football because I don't like Michigan or Ohio State. You see what I mean? So there's going to be a team out there that I inevitably like because of the teams that I don't like. Same thing with LSU. I love to see LSU go to work, except for when it's against the Florida Gators. But make no mistake about it, that is my favorite rivalry out west, and that is our eternal rival. We see them every year, just like we see another team that I have great respect for, which is FSU. Okay? This is going to be a tremendous game, guys. Don't sleep on it. If you have the free time on September 3rd, 7:30 p.m., check this game out, all right? It's going to be nuts. Now, the Kings, they're the only ones without an exciting game, okay? They're playing Miami of Ohio. I know Miami struggled last year, but if they don't win this game 45-50 to zip, I don't know what to tell you, all right? Miami of Ohio is one of those colleges where they kind of play football because they can. I'm sure they make a little bit of money off of it, but make no mistake about it, they don't send a lot of talent to the pros, okay? And this is not a team I'm expecting to go very far into their season with more than 2 or 3 W's on their record. With that being said, Canes, y'all got to figure it out because last year was terrible, all right? And you're right, Miami might lose, and that's what makes it very hilarious because, again, the way they started the season last year, terrible, all right? Matter of fact, just the whole season was terrible. I'm not sure who their quote-unquote new identity was, because we had that conversation last year as the season started to kick off, was their new identity and who they are, and yeah, it was nothing. It was all a joke. It was all blasphemy, okay? Shout out to Stephen A. Smith, because you know that's his favorite word. Now, that game is going to be Friday, September 1st at 7 p.m., all right? So, I'm going to watch it, but if Miami gets behind at any point, I'm turning the game off. Whether they win or lose, I'm turning the game off. Because first off, I could watch so many better things, better sports, especially on a Friday afternoon, Friday evening. And, with that being said, that's what's going on with the Canes. No shade to the Canes, but y'all definitely have a lot of work to do to return to form, returning back to that college. That, thank you, Dad, for putting that stat in there. Miami has 5 national championships to their name. All right, guys, including one of the greatest rosters to ever be assembled: Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, all those boys, Clinton Portis, just all those guys that was on that early 2000s Miami team. If you guys remember that national championship they won, absolutely destructive, okay, team that they had. It's going to take them a while to return to that form. Now then, let us go ahead and slide over to the Rays real quick, guys. Now with the Rays are still second in the AL East, all right? Still got a lot to talk about here, all right? Good news, bad news. We're going to start with I'm going to start with the good news first, because the bad news could be fake news. We don't know for sure because of where it's taking place at, so I'll give you that at the very end. But as far as what's going on right now for the Rays, if somebody can put the update of what the score is, the last time I did see that score of that game, it was the Angels actually beating the Rays 7-5 at the bottom of the 5th. All right. Now, again, that's the Angels. We're playing. This is the second game of a 3-game series. You know how the Rays like to do it: win a game, lose a game, win a game. I'm not sure where that repetition came from, but that seems to have been the theme for Tampa Bay in recent series. And by recent series, I mean pretty much everything since the break. All right. We've been doing a good job at going 2-1, not a really good job at going 3-0 or 0-3. So I'll take it, because 2 is better than 1. All right, let's just call it like what it is. 2 is better than 1. Again, this is the second of a 3-game series against the Angels, with the last game, my apologies, the third game coming tonight at 9:07 p.m. Yes, this is a doubleheader. The game for yesterday got moved up due to weather issues. We're going to see what happens, because you know how these doubleheaders are. It's always questionable. It's always questionable. Thank you, my man. 7-6 Angels in the 8th. All right, so Rays got a chance to do what they like to do, and that's walk it off. So we'll see what happens there. Rays, let's see if you can pull it together. Going to have to play some defense. Going to have to work on that pitching. Speaking of pitching, a little bit of bad news here. Shane McCallahan out for the season. Tommy John surgery, guys. One of our aces out of the way. Not good at all. But then again, I've said this before over the last few shows, really since the break. This has been the issue with this Rays team. We can't stay healthy. It's a terrible thing when you have a top 3 squad, right, in the MLB, but it's not reflecting it due to injuries. It's not due to lack of playing and their heads not being in the game. Yeah, that happens from time to time. We've had some outside the ballpark issues, of course. What team doesn't? The problem is the Rays' major issues have been coming from losing players in key series matchups. Okay, lost a couple of players against the Dodgers. We actually lost the game against the Dodgers on a bad call. Okay, so things like that are just really plaguing Tampa Bay. Despite that, still second in AL East, rocking a record of 74-50. That's plus 24. You gotta love it. All right. And I'm just hoping that we are able to get back on the ball and continue to stay on that ball, make a deep run to the playoffs, and then, you know what I feel about one-run ball games, guys. We got to win those one-run ball games. Last night's game was a tremendous game. What an absolute wild in-the-park home run that we had. And you love to see it at the end. I just say you love to see it. It's very rare that it happens. And that was one of the highlights. For those of you who did not see it, go back and check it out. I finally got the pleasure to see it. Let me tell you, that ball went. Okay, and it was on a mission. It was almost like it was part of its own RPG, or it was on a movie. You know what I'm saying? It in the park home runs, like I said, very rare thing to see. Very phenomenal. You love to see it at the end of the day. That's all I can say about that, guys. So go check that out if you haven't done it. And the doubleheader, like I said, the second game will be tonight, 9:07 p.m. to wrap up the 3-game series. The Rays are going to get a little bit of rest, and then they're going to slide over and get ready to fight the Rockies, okay? Now, the Rockies are not playing great baseball, all right? Their record stands right now at 47-75. It's outlandish, okay? It's terrible, all right? Rays, let's go pick up a couple of wins here, all right? This is what you might call free wins, all right? But you still got to go in there and play the game. You still got to get the wins. You got to do the work, all right? Rockies are playing terribly. Take advantage of it. Let's not lose any more players to injuries, and let's get ready to wrap this up and head into the next series, which I think is against the Yankees, guys. So, Yankees aren't playing that much better baseball, but they are better than the Rockies, okay? So, let's just get it together, Rays. Let's wrap up this series. Go get a couple of wins against the Rockies and get ready for the Yankees. They did pretty good against the Giants. That's where that in the park home run came from. And we went 2-1 against the Giants over on the West Coast, which is a big deal because the Rays have struggled playing on the West Coast. Okay, so I wanted to point that out real quick. Good job, Rays. Keep it together on the West Coast. Continue to improve. And now for the bad news. And before I give you the rest of the bad news, guys, that series against the Rockies starts Tuesday, August 22nd, 6:40 p.m. I was going to forget that, but I don't want to. Tuesday, 6:40 p.m. Guys, check it out. Rays Rockies baseball, okay? Now, back to the bad news. Wander Franco, all right, guys? Guy's been playing like an MVP, all right? The kid's an absolute monstrosity on the baseball field, okay? For a young guy, I can't believe what I'm seeing from him. At the same time, I'm so happy that he's with us. Okay? I'm not happy about these allegations. Okay? There's allegations coming out of the DR, that's the Dominican Republic, you guys, where he's native, and it's of an inappropriate relationship. Now, I try not to get too heavy into politics. I try not to get too heavy into things like this either. However, he is married to a 21-year-old, okay, so she is beyond legal, all right, as he himself is only about 22 years old. He's a very young guy himself, okay? So the allegations of inappropriate relationship seem to be fake news. However, he has lost some endorsements. He is in trouble with not just the Rays, but with the league. He's been placed on a restricted leave, okay? And essentially what that means is he cannot have contact with the team right now. He can talk to people, but he can't physically be with the team. And he's not with the team currently. There's not really anything good out of this, as other than, like I said, he is married to a 21-year-old woman, but that doesn't speak for what other inappropriate relationships he may have. Baseball players get paid a hell of a lot of money, guys. All right, a lot of money. I think they make more money than football and basketball players make, okay? So when you take that in consideration, I don't know. It's scary. It's tight, and it's a bad deal for us because he's one of the two best players on this team next to Randy Arozarena if you take away the pitching, all right? We saw how the Rays have played without Wander Franco playing at the top of his game. It's going to be really hard to win, especially in the playoffs, without him. Okay, that's the bottom line. That's the bottom line of this entire scenario. Rays are going to make the playoffs, no doubt about it. Wander Franco not being in the lineup, potentially devastating. All right, I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping that this is all a charade. This is just something that they're trying to do to make a guy who's at the top of his game look bad. I'm not sure what the deal is with it. We will find out more details as more details get released. But agreed, it doesn't look good at all. It doesn't, all right? So that's what's going on for the Rays, guys. I know my mood got a little bit damp in there, but it's just that's what happens when you experience hardship, especially that kind of hardship with one of your favorite players on one of your favorite teams. Wishing the best for Wander Franco, but responsibility is responsibility. Here's hoping that they can handle that peacefully and without issues. Let's go ahead and get to our second break, guys. When I get back, we'll talk about what to watch for tonight, and we'll talk a little bit about what happened on SmackDown on Friday, and then I'll get to the UFC 292 fight card, which looks to be an absolute banger. You know how the UFC likes to do it at the end of summertime, so this is just another one of those tremendous cards that they've put together, guys. But keep it locked here for the next few moments, and I'll be back. My name is Corey Pujols, your host for Palm Tree Sports Radio, and as always, this is brought to you and powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
IE Sports Radio fans, it's your boy, the SoCal Saint, the host of the premier professional wrestling podcast online today, the IE Elite Wrestling Show. If you're a fan and have a passion for the world of professional wrestling, this is the show for you. I take you inside the ropes with all the athleticism, high-flying, and hard-hitting action, and then we take it backstage with all the backstage drama and backstabbing that goes on in the world of professional wrestling today. If something's going on in the world of professional wrestling, rest assured, the SoCal Saint knows what's going on, and he's going to let you know too. If you're a fan, check us out every Tuesday, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on IE Sports Radio. The IE Elite Wrestling Show, your direct feed for all that is professional wrestling, on the only network that is your direct feed for all that is sports. Check us out.
That's right, you guys. And if you're like me, you like all the sports, you enjoy all the sports, well, that's a little bit of a lie, guys. I don't really care for golf, but that's neither here or there. Pro wrestling, though, great storylines, great talent. There's a lot that goes into it. We're going to talk about it, actually, in a moment. But first off, as always, my name is Coy Pujols, your host for Palm Tree Sports Radio, brought to you empowered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And if you guys watched SmackDown on Friday, obviously you probably already saw that this was Edge's last match, alright, under contract with WWE. He said himself after the show that he would consult with his family, with his children, with his wife, and do a little bit of soul searching, determine what's best for him, determine what's next for him. Of course, he could still go in the ring. He's kept himself in tremendous shape. His name is Adam Copeland, and he's another prodigy of Canadian wrestling. The guy is absolutely a treasure to behold. One of the greatest heels in wrestling history and one of the greatest wrestlers to ever do it, hands down. The man was an absolute tactician inside the ring. His character development over time made him such a phenomenal wrestler and somebody that you admire even when you love to hate him. Just like Randy Orton, who should hopefully be returning back soon. I was hoping that would be Edge's last match, between Randy or John Cena. But unfortunately, it's not. It is what it is. We'll see what happens to him. But to Edge, to Adam Copeland, we say thank you so much for what you've done for pro wrestling. What a time it was to watch you, to grow up watching you more specifically. What a treasure you were to pro wrestling, and I wish you nothing but the best as you move on into your further endeavors. For those of you who do not know, he's actually got quite the acting career that's been going on in the background. It was like when Kobe stepped away, okay? It was like when Kobe stepped away. So we're going to miss him. I miss Kobe even now. And so with that being said, that's what the highlight of what SmackDown was. The rest of the show was pretty good. But of course, if you want to check out more, you can check out the IE Elite Wrestling show, which is going to cover all of that information, especially what went on in SmackDown. What a phenomenal ride it's been for him. Now, moving on over to AEW, for the bit of information I have for you guys on that show tonight, we have Collision. That card is, I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys, underwhelming, okay? Yeah, Samoa Joe's going to be action. Yeah, Miro's going to be in action. Yeah, Jay White's going to be in action. That's all great. FTR should be there. That's great. The only match that looks good is going to be Darby Allin versus Christian Cage. Okay, now for those of you who don't know, Christian Cage is exactly who he sounds like. That is Christian as in Edge's old partner. So Edge gave us a great segue into what was going on for this card. As far as the fight to watch, or the match to watch, I should say, Christian Cage has gone heel. He's playing one of the better heels here in AEW at the moment, as he has a Luchasaurus by his side, holding down a championship. We're going to see what happens as that continues to go on. I believe that championship is the TNT champion that he is, after beating the War Machine Wardlow for it. That was a tremendous match. But even more so than that, like I said, the rest of the card is not a big deal. If you guys are looking for something to watch, but, just passively, where you don't have to really pay attention to everything, just for background noise, that would be what I say to watch for this evening. AEW's Collision card starts at 8 o'clock this evening, so get ready for that in about an hour and a half. Actually, less than an hour and a half now, as we're approaching 7 o'clock. And again, as I said, Darby Allin, Christian Cage looks like it's going to be the best match on the card. If you're not interested in that, don't even watch it. Don't even worry about it. Thank you for that update, Dad. 7-6 is your final for the Rays game. That's right. The Angels were able to beat the Rays in this first game of the doubleheader. Don't worry, guys. We got another game coming up in just under 2 hours, and that game is going to be at 9:07 p.m., as I mentioned earlier. So if you're looking for Rays baseball and you're upset about the first game, we got a chance at redemption here to go 2-1 for our third straight series, 3-game series, guys. So that's pretty nutty, all right? But, if you're looking for something to watch tonight that's going to be an absolute banger, boy, oh boy, do I have a fight card for you. UFC 292 kicks off tonight at 8 p.m., guys. And if you want to see some of the best talent that AEW, or not AEW, but the UFC has currently to offer, look no better than what might be the best wrestler in all of the UFC in Aljamain Funkmaster Sterling taking on Sugar Sean O'Malley. Guys, as you guys know, I love martial arts. Martial arts is probably the love of my life aside from football. Those two probably go hand in hand. I don't know which one I'd take over the other. Probably football. And as my dad put in the chat, guys, I am a huge Sugar Sean O'Malley fan. I watched O'Malley in the Tough Enough series, or when I don't say Tough Enough series, it's the TUF as in tough, but it's actually the Ultimate Fighter series that Dana White has, his Contender series, if you will. And in that series, we got to see Sean O'Malley with the walk-off KO. It went viral. Yes, Snoop Dogg and the California Kid were both there commentating for the fight. It was absolutely phenomenal. If you didn't see it, go check out Sean O'Malley's highlights, guys. This fight card is absolutely loaded from top to bottom, starting with the main event, of course. Like I said, Aljo versus O'Malley. Guys, let me break it down for you very simple, okay? For those of you who may not watch mixed martial arts, don't know a lot about mixed martial arts. Aljamain Sterling, all right, defeated Henry Cejudo, the Triple C, the former double-weight champion and Olympic gold medalist, okay? I'm going to say that one more time. Henry Cejudo was an Olympic gold medalist and a two-division champion in the UFC. Aljo beat him on Henry Cejudo's return. Now, I will say this. I picked Aljo to win the fight simply because I believe in ring rust. If you've been out of the game for too long, which Cejudo had been out for quite a few years, okay? It's going to be hard to get that speed and that power back in the moment, all right? Not in training. In training, it's not hard to get it all back. It might take a little bit longer, but it's not hard, okay? Getting in the octagon with somebody who's been fighting the best competition for the last 6 years, that is the part that makes it hard. Here's the thing. O'Malley is a sniper. Okay, if you guys ever played any type of Call of Duty, any type of video game, or if you're in the military like myself, I got the fire weapons down range. I shot 30 out of 40 on the rifle twice. Okay, guys, let me tell you, being a sniper, having the striking that O'Malley has in general, okay, is one of the best weapons you can have in all martial arts. As one of the greatest martial arts masters ever once said, 80% of fights go to the ground, 100% start standing up. I, guys, am going to go with the long shot, no pun intended. Sugar Sean O'Malley is one of my more favorite fighters in there. I'm going to put my faith in him. His wrestling needs a lot of work. Yes, we know that. But again, 100% of fights start standing up. And if he can make this fight dirty early on with the hands, with the feints, with the head movement, with the mind games, okay, Aljo could pull this out with the first or second round TKO. However, I think if this fight gets out of the second round, if this fight goes late into the third round or beyond it, I'm going to say that O'Malley's going to be in trouble there. O'Malley has not gone 25 minutes, okay? However, he hasn't really needed to. Most of his fights he's been able to end by knockout, all right? Like I said before, if you don't have any knowledge on this kid, Sugar Sean O'Malley, get on YouTube, go look up this kid's highlight reels. I'm telling you, he's a special fighter. Same thing with Aljo, though, all right? Again, Aljo is a tremendous fighter, but he does have a hole in his game, and that hole is the stand-up. I look for him to wrestle early, and if he doesn't, Sean has a chance. If he does wrestle early, obviously, we know what to expect there, unless Sean can survive and somehow magically stress out or tire out, all right, Aljo. Aljo's coming in here with a champion's record of 23-3. O'Malley with a record of 16-1. I urge you guys to understand something. That one loss that O'Malley has isn't really a loss. He actually absolutely tore his foot apart in the fight against another person who's fighting tonight in Marlon Chito Vera. That fight was a very sad fight to watch. Marlon Chito Vera got the quote-unquote TKO victory. I don't believe it was a TKO. O'Malley lost because of his foot. Okay, it should have been ruled a no contest. It wasn't. Maybe they were trying to push Marlon Vera. I don't know for sure, but at the end of the day, Sean O'Malley is the one fighting for the title. I'm going for Sean if it stays on the feet. If it goes down to the ground, Aljo by decision, if not by submission. In the co-main event, guys, we have Zhang Weili versus Amanda Lemos. Okay, this fight has the potential for fight of the night. All right, so here's one of the big reasons why you should check out this fight. Zhang Weili is the first and only Chinese-born UFC champion in the history of the UFC, and she is absolutely sensational, okay? This is a female who can get it done on the feet, on the ground, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, striking. She has it all. She's got the power of about a 155er, all right? And she's strawweight. Okay, guys, so take that into consideration as she is going into battle against Amanda Lemos, who is the current Brazilian on the card. All right, now the reason why I say that is because, as you would assume, she does have a background in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but she also has multiple size power. And the reason why I say multiple size power is because she can end fights whether she's on the ground or standing. We've seen her do it both. We've seen her knock people out on the feet. We've seen her take them down and punish them. We've seen her submit people. We've seen her do it all, okay? This fight has the most potential of all the fights to be for fight of the night, and I look forward to seeing what happens here. Like I said, Zhang Weili, 23-3, same record as Aljo, going against the 13-2 Amanda Lemos. For this fight, I'm going to go Zhang Weili. She does have more experience. She's the more technically excessive fighter, and I believe that her willpower may be greater than that of Amanda Lemos. Not take anything away from her, but we've seen Amanda Lemos struggle with good strikers before, or strikers that are above her prowess, and I believe that Zhang Weili is one of those such strikers in the females strawweight division. Moving on from that, there's two other fights that you're going to want to pay attention to, guys. Neil Magny has stepped in to fight Ian Gary, okay? Ian Gary is an Irish-born 12-0 fighter. The man's got tremendous stand-up and ground game. Against Neil Magny, who is one of the longtime UFC vets in the UFC with a 28-11 record. I look forward to seeing what happens here. I believe that if Neil can get a beat on Ian Gary and keep up with that pace early, that in the later rounds he'll be able to make Ian struggle and make mistakes. However, we've not seen Ian Gary get to later rounds. This man is an absolute monster. The pace that he sets is ridiculous, and it's hard for people to deal with him, both on the feet and on the ground. This should be a tremendous fight versus a young versus old guard, and I look forward to seeing this. This should be the third most accessible fight for you this evening. And then also on this card, Marlon Chito Vera, the guy who has the 1 and the 16-1 of Sugar Sean O'Malley's record, versus Pedro Munoz, who was a guy that Sean O'Malley, for all intents and purposes, embarrassed inside the octagon when they fought. That was the fight where the viral meme, if you guys hadn't seen it, went over, where in the middle of the fight, Pedro Munoz went with a spinning back heel kick, completely whiffed, and then Sugar Sean O'Malley pirouetted just to kind of show him what it looked like to miss a 360 spin, okay? So if you guys have seen that was the fight, all right? I remember watching that fight live. Sugar was absolutely on fire. It's the type of thing you love to see, especially from somebody who is as cool and confident as Sugar is. Pedro Munoz, by no means necessary an easy fighter to beat. I believe this fight has been in the works, and now we're finally going to get a chance to see it. Marlon Chito Vera versus Pedro Munoz. Now, for these two fights, I'm going to go Ian Gary. Neil Magny's a tremendous athlete and a tremendous martial artist. He does have holes in his games that he has been trying to rectify, but Ian Gary's sheer brilliance inside the octagon and ability to handle the fight wherever it goes seems to be the outstanding thing here. I'm going to go Ian Gary by decision, if not by TKO in the end of the first or early in the second round. For Marlon Vera, Chito Vera, and Pedro Munoz, I'm going to rock with Marlon Vera. Marlon Vera has pretty much been on a tear in the UFC, winning more than he's been losing. And the guy's been in there with a lot of the best talent. I believe the last time he was in there with Cruz. Was that Dominique Cruz, I think it is? One of the former champions of the world, and absolutely destroyed him, kicked his head off his shoulders. And it was one of those things where we really got to see Marlon Vera's growth as a martial artist. Against Pedro Munoz, who's another top 15 talent, it should be a wonderful fight. I'm going to go, like I said, Marlon Vera. I'm going to go at Marlon Vera perhaps by decision, as Pedro Munoz can take a lot of damage. However, I would not be surprised to see Marlon Vera end this fight standing up, if not at the end of the first, again in the second round. Both of these fighters, Marlon Vera and Gary, that I'm picking on the subliminal card, the better of the two fighters in their fights, okay? So take that information with a grain of salt, because obviously we're not talking about championship level fights, but a lot of talent to be on display here tonight at UFC 292. That's what's going on there for the fight card tonight, guys. Thank you for rocking with me here on the Palm Tree Sports Radio. My name has been Corey Pujols, and it's been my pleasure to speak to you. If I just may give you a few words of wisdom, love your family, spend time with them, enjoy the time. You never know when it's going to be up. There's so much craziness going on in the world. I'm praying for everybody always, but I just would love to see more cohesiveness between us as humans. And it all starts with sports, right? At least for us it does. So enjoy the rest of the weekend. Enjoy what's coming up sports-wise. Like I said, got plenty of baseball to watch for tonight. You got that Rays game, the second of the doubleheader, coming up at 9:07 p.m. We obviously have the Buccaneers game, which is about to take off here in the next 5 minutes. We have the Dolphins closing out the Texans right now. 28-3 is the score. 1 minute, 45 seconds to go. Texans have the ball and moving, but it doesn't really matter. This game is already out of reach, as you would imagine. Tampa Bay and the Jets coming up next. If you want to keep watching football, like I said, doubleheader baseball, 9:07 p.m. Rays versus Angels. And then tonight, pro wrestling, AEW Collisions card, Darby Allin versus Christian Cage. And then UFC 292 starting at 8 o'clock p.m. Aljo versus O'Malley for the bantamweight title. Guys, what a wonderful night we have. A lot of sports to check out. I really hope to see you next time here on the show. Again, my name has been Corey Pujols. This is Palm Tree Sports Radio, brought to you by Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I appreciate the support, guys. I love you all. Have a great weekend. See you same time, same place next week. Peace.